Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Raymore City Council work session for Monday, August the 5th, 2024. We'll begin the meeting with our first item on the agenda this evening for our work session is the Parks and Recreation Annual Report. I'll turn it over to Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, sir, and I will turn it immediately over to the park chair and the parks director.
Thank you, sir, and I will immediately steal it from the park chair and take over. We are passing out a document, an annual report document that we prepared for tonight to briefly go over with you all. First of all, this is an annual report. It's required by state statute, so we're here tonight. We do it differently throughout the years. This year, we're kind of getting back to a more formalized way of doing the annual report like we used to do. This is one thing that we're going to build on in the future. For next year, we've been working with the communications department on how we want to build and enhance this annual report next year. One of the things just to keep note is by state statute, it says before June or halfway through the year, calendar year. Well, our fiscal year starts early, so this particular report is from November 1st through the end of July. So when you see those numbers, they aren't a full calendar year or a full 12-month. They are a 7-month look at what our numbers are. So first, just moving through it, at the beginning, it talks about our park board members, and I would like to say first and foremost, we have a fantastic park board. We really have a good cohesive unit. They work well together. They support our staff. They come up with great ideas, and so as a parks department, we're really fortunate right now just to be in a good place with our volunteer board. And so we appreciate them very much. Obviously, I have our chair here with us, and so the things that we're doing are because they support us and allow us to do great things. So just a quick thank you to them. And in terms of staff and who we are, I do want to make note of some of the milestones of our staff. We're fortunate in our department in terms of full-time employees being here a very long time. We have some longevity on our staff, which means there's a wealth of institutional knowledge, things that we've done, how we do things, what happens with that from a department standpoint as those folks are moving more towards retirement and things, we have to start working on a succession plan and passing along that knowledge. So that's one of the things that we focused on in the Parks Maintenance Department, specifically with Jeff Schmill, our park foreman, longtime park foreman. He is our go-to information bank. If we can't remember it, he does, and we got to make sure we figure out how to get that out of him before he leaves us. So and thankfully, he's not planning on it anytime soon, but you still got to plan for those things. But as you can see, there's 5 parks employees, including myself, with over 16 years of experience here in service to the city of Raymore. So we're pretty proud of that as a department. What we are is one of the things that on the next page that I really wanted to focus on, because I think what's important in terms of how the community looks at the Parks and Recreation Department is where we used to be as opposed to where we are now, and also in comparison to other communities. And I think that's one of the things that is attractive to the city of Raymore, draws folks to want to live here and reside in our town, and that is our park system. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm in charge of it, and I've had a lot to do with it. But I think that it is important. Young families want to be here because of the sports and the athletics and the trails and those things, types of amenities. And as a city as a whole, we have done a really good job over the past 10 years or so of enhancing this parks department. And I know Mr. Troutman will probably talk a little bit about it, so I don't want to get too far into it. But I do want to make note that even over the course of the past 2 years, the number of amenities that we have added and has changed the face of what our parks looks like. Just look at Recreation Park as a great example. We have a new skate park on the north side of it, and as a result of that, we have a new pickleball facility on the south side that's all on street front. We have right now brand new trails going in that are visible all across the park. We have 2 new playgrounds that are less than 3 years old, collectively, both of those playgrounds. Our soccer fields are really hitting. Our flag football program continues to grow, so we're painting 3 flag football fields in the green area at Rec Park just to accommodate the number of growth that we have in that particular sport. Not to mention the RAC. Obviously, the RAC has been, we voted that in 2016. We built it in 2017, opened it in 2018, shut it down in 20 for COVID, opened it back up, and then shut it down to expand it. We haven't even seen the RAC be able to go full force for more than 24 months at a time, and it continues to grow and do great things for us. So we're really excited about that. And I think as a council and a park board, when we do open that and are able to take you guys in, you're going to be excited about what we've done there. Our picnic shelters, we continue to grow the rentals year after year. Our special use areas between the spray ground and the amphitheater and the mountain bike course was extremely popular and built strictly by volunteers, and a little bit of help from our park staff is top notch and a regional draw for mountain bikers across the region. And so it just goes to show the amenities and the great things that our department provides and our city provides for not just the residents but others. On the next page of what we do, I brought in a little bit of that, but I gave you some numbers, and like I said, just as a quick reminder, this is November 1st of the fiscal year through last Friday is when we ran those numbers. So we still have a full 3-4 months left of sports registrations, things of that nature that we still have to go. And in comparison, obviously, when you're a parks department and you're running sports, there's a little bit of a competitive nature. So we keep a pretty close tab on our sister communities and those that we share games with, and because we want to know, just to be blunt, how much better we are than them. And so we have our number comparison, and right now, throughout at the end of July, we lead Pleasant Hill, Harrisonville, Belton, and Grandview in all registrations of the sports categories. So if you pick girls volleyball, we have more registration in girls volleyball than any of the other cities, so on and so forth. So that's a pretty decent testament to our staff and our facilities that our numbers are growing and continue to grow. The mini mud run is obviously coming up in just 2 weeks. Right now, our registrations are ahead of where we were last year. We've done a lot of work with the communications department to promote that event. Reimagined how those course obstacles work, a new course with all the amenities we have at Hawk Ridge Park. We're having to redo some things. And so that marketing is helping us gain some ground on our registrations there as well. Summer camp is up in comparison to last year. But if you go down to the bottom of the page, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we have a lot of projects currently going. And just listed there, and I don't even have the RAC listed or what we've got out on the street for bid right now, which is the parking lot at the amphitheater, which Trent and I reported on at the last council meeting. So there are a lot of projects. If you've not gone to the west side of Hawk Ridge Park, we've got a brand new basketball court out there. Looks really, really good. Obviously, the pickleball courts look great and are getting used a lot. The Centerview detention contract, the landscaping there. We're working daily with the contractors, and that project should be kicking off in the growing season coming up. Our youth scoreboards, I was talking to Councilmember Barber here earlier, extremely popular. That was the hit of the baseball season, was our youth scoreboard, so we're really pleased with that. And just working through, we've had a really great year of growing our programs, growing our registrations, doing a lot of projects, working with our park board, and the goals that we have is what I really want to talk about, and then I'll pass this on. Is we have set ourselves some goals as a department that we want to work on this coming next year and hope to be able to report to you at next year's annual report, which is one of the reasons why we kind of redesigned how we're doing this report and come back to the old way so we could track these things. But the goals that my department in our meetings have hit, these are things that we want to, as a department, focus on this year and then bring back to the park board and ultimately the council to show what we've been working on. We want to focus on our picnic shelters. We think they're top notch and there's a lot of them. And so we want to really have a pointed marketing campaign towards renting those shelters out, because there's some room for those shelters to make a little more revenue for us. And so we want to focus on that. The same scenario with our community partnership, which is basically our team sponsorships and our event sponsors. We want to be more available to the community and the community businesses to put their name in our parks. And so we want to have a different look and a different approach to how we do those things. That also includes our volunteer recognition program. If you look back there, we have in the back, I believe I put 176 youth sports coaches. They don't get paid for this. They do this because they love sports and they love their kids and they want to work with us. And we want to figure out a better way to make sure that they know we appreciate them. So that's another thing. Reimagine our community events. That is one of those things where we don't want to let things get stale. So it's time to take a look at the events that we do, figure out what's still working, what needs to maybe be pulled back, how we can combine them. Are there new events we want to do? So we just want to take an overall global look at those events that we're doing, see what's working and what can work, and take an approach to that. My recreation division, one of the things that were included in the comprehensive plan that we presented to you all a few months ago is a recreation business plan, and that's more of just a detailed plan of how we want to run the recreation programs. And if you break it down, the recreation program or division is simply a business. It's a business, but it's a business and experience and providing opportunities. And so we want to create a business plan that makes sure that no matter who's in charge or who is working or what we're doing, there's an outcome and a target that we want to head in that direction and have a purpose for those programs. And finally, the legacy program, which is what our tribute trees, our memorial benches, our honor bricks. We started that about 8 years ago, and it kicked off really good, and then it's kind of gotten stagnant, and we want to take a look at that because there's a lot of opportunity to provide a place for people to remember significant events and others and honor our servicemen and women. And so we want to look at that and see how we can take that on. So those are the things that we have set as goals for ourselves as a department for the next year. And with that, I can answer any questions, or I can pass it off to my park board chair here, Mr. Troutman.
Steve, you have anything you want to add?
Oh, I'm going to add. I still have my 45 minutes, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
No, does anybody have any questions for Nathan before I get jumping in? Go ahead, Jay.
Go ahead, Jay.
Thank you, sir. I think this is a very good report. I think it's a very fair assessment of the status of the parks, the work that you've done, and that's not just over this year, it's over a number of years, as you stated yourself. And I think that we, as a city and the Parks Board and the park staff, provide an excellent product to our citizens. This is a very positive report. So my question would be on the flip side. What are your challenges and what help do you need?
That's a loaded question. I wouldn't say money. I would say time and resources. There's just so much that we want to do and so little time to be able to do it. By the time you get to the end of a program and you want to implement it, that season's over and you're already looking to the next. And so I think it's to give you an answer that you could never provide me. It's a slowdown so we can take our time and do things right. But outside of that, I would request some time to think about it and get back with you.
I have a couple of specific questions. How are we set for those? Since we're open till 11 o'clock at night, are there areas of the park that need lighting? And do you have that in a CIP program moving down the road?
I don't have specific lighting in areas of the park. we have active areas that are lit, and then we have cameras that cover that. I would say more than light is I need camera coverage in areas during the day that are problem areas. Our vandalism continues to rise. And my park staff will tell you that vandalism is a cycle. You have a group of kids that are just kind of ornery and cause problems, and as they graduate out, you have a few seasons that you don't have as much. Right now, we're seeing one of those seasons where we're just kind of getting tagged a lot in terms of vandalism, and so the cameras help us more than the lighting, because the lighting just in those particular areas, it's been my experience, the lighting just provides them visual to be able to do what they're doing, and so we need to be able to
I haven't been
capture
to the basketball courts over at Hawk Ridge, but are they lit?
They are not, and we purposefully did not light them because the general rule that we follow is if we beat the neighborhood there, we'll put lights up. If the neighborhood beats us to that particular point, then it's a little bit of a battle to overcome that, because those
Light
stadium lights
pollution.
weren't there
Yeah.
before they moved
Well,
there.
that's why I was wondering if maybe that was the same reasoning for the pickleball courts, the new pickleball.
Pickleball courts
'Cause you got-
actually have lights that will be installed in literally the next 3 weeks.
Oh, okay, all right.
That was one that we felt like we didn't need to stall because Public Works is right there. It's a park surrounding it. The horse farm is across the street, well away from it. So that particular location I picked for pickleball is because the noise of pickleball is really loud, and we don't have a lot of neighbors right there. And then also the lighting wouldn't affect anybody because you've already got the baseball lights as well.
Sure.
So the lights were part of the project. They just haven't been installed yet.
Okay, all right. Mr. Barber?
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. I like this. This is very, a lot of information. You put the numbers, you look at the volunteers and all that, you realize, wow, there are a lot of people involved. Takes a lot of people to make this work. My question before the meeting started about the signage and how that was working, obviously that's new technology, kind of cutting edge technology. Is there anything else that the park department is looking for in the other parks to kind of add? I know you got the tracking software that, when people come in, you can track where they're coming from. Is there anything down the road that you see or the board sees that are going to be expanded in any of the other parks as far as leveraging technology?
I would say right now, as far as in terms of each individual park, when you get the comprehensive plan, you'll look at the parks chapter. Each park has its own master plan of that particular park. If we follow that master plan that I've designed and put in place of that, each park has those specific things that we want in that park. For instance, TB Hanna, if the expansion were to ever occur, part of the technology would be one of the adding a digital sign that was not previously funded in the funds the council gave us. They had 3, but TB Hanna was not one of the areas. We know that would be very valuable in that area, as well as cafe lighting across throughout the park to light it, because that's a special event park that we want to be open later at night. So having that light throughout a smaller park makes sense, and we can do things later in the evening. So that would be one. We've already funded the digital signs for the rack, which are currently being scoped and will be installed later this year, or at least out to contract later this year. I don't know when the installation will be, but that's one of the areas that we'll utilize that funding for that we've done. And right now, it's really what's heavy on our mind right now are the cameras, because there's just so much vandalism and we're not able to see where that is. So that seems to be one, but I can tell you where I want, but there's so many more things in play between the IT department, electric connections, PDs, obviously got to have they're the ones who are going to tell us where to put those things, not us. We just say where our problem areas are. So being put on the spot with that question, that tends to be my big one, because I'm constantly called in saying, we have another piece of playground equipment broken, or somebody spray painted or ripped off the water fountain again. And those are things that we have to repair, but we have no way of getting retribution back because we can't stop it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Sounds to me like too, the cameras would almost, I hate this phrase, but almost pay for themselves if you could cut the vandalism down, and obviously not just the cost of it, but then people can't utilize whatever's vandalized or something like that. So there's the inconvenience, and it ties up park staff, and we all know that you don't have an abundance of park staff as well. So I can see where that would be important, very important.
Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, today my wife and I were up at the splash park with 3 of my great-grandsons, had a great time. But my wife asked me when we were there's some areas where the mothers and grandmothers were all sitting on the ground because there's no benches within the park, that splash park. And it says, keep track of your kids, which makes sense. But they were having to sit down and try to get back up off the concrete because that's all, they got nowhere to sit within that black iron fencing. So I was wondering if when the budget comes, if we can look into something not extravagant, but something cheaper we can put. I know on the north side there's a big concrete area where they sit, and on the east side there's a big grassy area. But if we can get 2 or 3 nice, some type of benching in there for the mothers and grandmothers, especially to sit down on watching their kids. My wife said, she sat down and I had to kind of help her get back up because they get down there. And I said, I'll ask tonight, what we might do in the future on the splash park to help the moms and grandmas on that point, and whoever else.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up on the amphitheater, I know that last year I had added funds to those signs, and maybe you might know that, but do we have a timeline? I feel like from the promoting our activities, some items get picked up better than others depending on what people look at, but the digital signs for like Hawk Ridge Park, I know Rack Park is getting the other one, but do we have any time frame of when, I know Sunset Lane, that bid's going out, and that's where potentially that sign would be, but do we have a time frame on the future promotion of some of our parks due to these signs and messages?
The recreation park sign will go in as soon as the rack is complete. That's the close of that particular project, which is coming up, we hope, within the next 4 to 5 weeks. It better be. And then as soon as Sunset is done, that signage for the east side of the park will be going in at the entrance to that particular area in the park. Sunset, of course, was delayed due to land acquisition issues.
Anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just looking at the website just to see what everybody looks at when they go to, and it says TB Hanna is down. Do we know anything about that? The splash park.
The spray ground was reported late afternoon. Someone called and said that the buttons weren't activating, and so we contacted our contractor for electric. We think it was a power surge due to the heat, and they had to come back and reset some things. They had not been there as of the last time I was notified, so hopefully we'll be back up tomorrow. But the initial assessment was that it wasn't. It was just kind of a power surge due to the heat and just kind of overheated itself and reset like a GFI switch, but they need to come back and look at it. Now that I've said that out loud, it'll probably be something much more, elaborate, but we'll.
It was updated at 155.
Yes.
So Tom broke it?
Yes.
I like your deductive reasoning.
That's why we need a camera, right? Check it on those guys. Beating on the switch.
Yeah, we noticed that too, and the grandkids were pushing it. It was like a green light or red light, and they had one on each end. I wasn't sure they'd come on green, red, then they'd work, but I thought maybe it was more of a mechanical problem or something just on a timer or something with the computer. I wasn't sure either, but I noticed that was going on today too. Okay.
Anyone else?
Okay, I'll cut mine down to only 25 minutes then. It's not that big of a deal, Nathan, you superstar, you. Real quick, if you guys don't mind, I want you to turn back to the page that says what we are. and this has been important for me, and those of you who really know me know that I always kind of go back in the future. So what I wanted to do is when Nathan and I talked about our park system and so forth over the last couple of weeks, we talked about where were we 10 years ago. So if you look at this list, and I think this will help you understand how much parks have grown over the last 10 years. So if you look at the list of what we had 4 developed public parks in 2014. We still had 2 undeveloped parks. Now we have 2 new ones, the old ones being TB Hanna, fully developed, and Hawks Ridge. We only had 8 soccer fields. We're now up to 11. We had 0 flag football. We had 0 pickleball, as you well know. We had 6 miles park trail, and we had under 15 total city trails. No fountain in Hawks Ridge. So that park, although there was a pond there, not a lot of use to it. The playgrounds, we had 5 playgrounds versus 8. We didn't have the fort. Any of you who have kids that like to get in mud or grandkids, the fort's the place to go. Picnic rentals facilities, we only had 4 versus 6. And rental options, we only had 6 because the 2 we added on can now double, as you can either take full or you can take half, which is kind of our thought moving forward when it comes to shelters. Special use, it's funny, we were talking about no mountain bike course, no disc golf, no amphitheater, no ice rink, no TB Hanna spray ground. There was no rack, and there was no center view. So in as little as 10 years, all that has been built, okay? We've added, I believe, what did we say, 2.5? Help-wise, we've added 2.5 for all that.
Athletic coordinator and the office assistant.
Right, right. So I think that's important to look at because when for you, especially city council, mayor, city manager, assistant city manager, for you guys to, if we look at every day, we all get used to it. But if you look at what we've done in 10 years, it's incredible. And that was pre my time on the board. It was board members before me, Jay being one of them, Sonia being one of them, that carried the torch into where we are now. But when I look at that and I look at other cities and say, okay, what have they grown in 10 years? Unless they've copycatted us, they haven't. And I'll leave that at that. So I think it's just important to take a quick look back, and that was one thing I wanted to add. One thing I'm going to speak for Nathan, because Nathan, as you guys will know, is a very humble person. I have been on this board 8 years now. My time is coming due because I'm the kind of person who said, you need to hear different voices. They don't always have to hear my voice. So at some point, whenever Nathan kicks me out the door, it's time for somebody else's voice. But one of the things that I've been working with Nathan is, in the last 4-6 months, we've been taking a golf course view, the small grass view, not the 10,000 above view, because these things we have done have been great. But how can we, and how can I help, as my mother always taught me, leave it better than you found it. You guys probably lived through that era as well. How can we make what we have every day better? And so part of what Nathan was talking about is the reimagine our community events. We've already had 3 full staff meetings, and I've been lucky enough to be invited to them. And some of the events that you're used to that you probably, even though you don't because you guys are good friends of the parks, probably go, oh, we're going to do that same program again. There's a lot of switching that's going to happen. There's still going to be the programs, but they're going to change. They're going to look different. That's the push of the park board to Nathan's group is, how do we make the festival in the park better? How do we make Spirit Fest better? How do we make Veterans Day better? How do we make the summer program for kids better? And really, these guys have just been able to run from one program to another. The park board is now taking a stance in how can we help you, which is something we've never done since I've been on the board. How can we help you? How can we make these better? Brainstorming wise and so forth. We've been lucky to have the support of everybody in this room. You guys, I can't thank you enough of how I can come to each and every one of you. And you might not agree with this. You might not say, hey, we don't want to fund that. But you'll always say, well, what about? What about this? I can't tell you how much easier that makes the board's time, but then it rolls down to Nathan. Because I don't walk in Nathan's office and him go, oh, I know that city council is just not going to pass it. I know the mayor doesn't want it. I know this city manager or assistant city manager doesn't want it. You guys row in the boat with us. And if nothing else, I wanted to say thank you for that, because that helps us reinvent what we're doing. And then the last thing I really want to leave you with is the phrase, and I'm sure you've heard it, you can't be all things to all people. Sitting in the seat I sit in, we're darn close as the park board. We're darn close. Now, again, we partner with Arts, and they help bring in the things that we don't do. You know, we partner with other people, Public Works, they help us. I'll use it again, we row together, and we're rowing together. And I think what you'll see out of Parks in the next 12 months will be phenomenal. And if that's the case, I'm going to drop my mic and run out of there. But Nathan's team, whether it's, if you've ever met Laura over there, she's in the office, probably has the lowest position all the way up to Nathan. Everybody has the same say when we're in one of these meetings. So if Laura has a good idea for Steve's group, it's taken. If I have a good idea for Nick's group, it's taken. And again, in my 8 years, this is the first time I've seen it. So I would say to you, if you like what you see in here, give it 6 to 8 more months. I hope we have this meeting again and you guys go, wow, they weren't lying, because it's a change that I have not seen since I've been on this board. But I wanted to thank you guys. We couldn't have done it without the whole group in here. Well, maybe not Mr. Zur, but the rest of you, the rest of you, yes. Even Mr. Zur's helping our sunshine rules that don't get us in trouble and so forth. So, okay, leave him alone, or he's coming for you. So that's all I have for you. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Stephen. Anybody have anything for Mr. Troughton? Well, Steve, on behalf of the council, we want to thank you very much for your leadership as the chair of that group. I know that can be daunting at times because you hear from Nathan on a regular basis where the other members don't. And we appreciate the partnership that you all have. Nathan has been a blessing for us over in the Parks Department, and you as well as showing your leadership over the board. So thank you very much. We appreciate you guys. If there's no further questions. Thank you. Have a good evening. Move on to the next item, which is the fiscal year 2025 water and sewer rates.
Thank you, sir. Each year, we have to bring to you all the water and the sewer rates. Of course, if you all give us the thumbs up to move these forward, the sewer rates by state statute, it is a requirement that those come before you all formally in a public hearing format for your approval. So we always take the water rates along with that and kind of combine them into a public hearing, even though the water rates don't need it. I will get straight to the point here, and then I'll run through the details that back up the recommendation that we're going to be making. We are going to be recommending that as of November 1, the water rates go from $6.54 to $6.62, and the sewer rates go from $9.13 to $9.32. In the documents that you all have in front of you, you can see how that will put us in comparison with other jurisdictions in our area and in our region. To kind of give, as you all know, our enterprise fund, we work both in the solid waste area especially, but in the water and sewer rate, we use a cost of service model. We have certain amounts that we would like to see at the end of the year for restricted fund balances and in case of emergencies, an available fund balance. But everything else is relative to what we are projecting as far as, or know, as far as actual costs are concerned, so I'll kind of run down those. These rates are based on personnel and benefit charges, costs going up by 5.46%. This is a combination of projections for next year as well as increased salaries that are associated with the comp class study, as well as projection on benefits for all employees for next year. Commodities are expected to go up 7.1%. Maintenance and supplies, because we had a couple of different maintenance items that were unusual in the current year that we are in. We are anticipating maintenance and supplies actually going down by slightly over 9%. Utilities, we are anticipating going up by 4.98%. That is what the knowns that we are receiving from Spire and Evergy at this point in time. Contractual, we are anticipating a 15.31% due to the increase in property and liability insurance. That is a known. Kansas City Water will be going up 6.67%. That is due to consumption increases that we've seen where we go back several years and estimate. That's a tough one, especially with water. Obviously, it's been a little warm with very little rain the last couple of weeks. Something like that kind of hits us. People are using more. If we have a little bit more in there for that available fund balance, we see it creep up a little bit. In other years, it may be down a little bit. But we also have the known of a 4.4% rate increase from Kansas City Water. Middle Big Creek, 12.6% rate increase in Middle Big Creek. That's 10.2% plus an estimated additional 18 connections associated with that. Kind of get into some detail on what that percentage actually means here in a moment. Little Blue Valley Sewer District, we do know that they will be going up 5.51% rate increase for next year as well. As you see, some of these years, these are flat. This is a year where everything is going up. Everything is going up. We currently have, just for your information, and I will be adding these to you all's electronic packet tomorrow. We're kind of putting some things together at the last minute, and there's a lot of pages to this. So the spread between our volume and our winter average or non-volume customers, we have 4,879 volume customers and 3,620 winter averaging customers. Kansas City, Missouri, their water is going up to 4.4%. That will be, we received that notification on March 1st. Little Blue Valley Sewer District, the volume method, where we were talking about the 5.51% rate increase. We were notified of that. That will be going into effect in October of this year. That one's kind of nice because they're very, very close to our fiscal year, so we can plug it in each year, and they give us a lot of advance notice. And you'll also remember, or if you don't know, for your information, Little Blue Valley Sewer District is basically everything that is north of 58 Highway and goes out just past Mazuma. And Middle Big Creek is everything, basically the east side of the city, and Middle Big Creek is on a per connection charge. Middle Big Creek anticipates that sometime in the next 3 years, there will be shifting over to volume, and they're taking the advanced steps that would be associated with that. I can, without giving too much detail, I can let you all know that within the next 6 weeks.
5 weeks?
Well,
6 weeks, yeah.
Middle Big Creek will be here making a presentation to you all about, because they have experienced an increase in their costs, and so they want to talk to you about the ramifications of the cost increases.
That's
that they've
related to
got.
the expansion project in Pleasant Hill. The budget came in 168 million initially, and it's gone up to 180. So the 12 million is going to be spread amongst the 8 entities that are part of Middle Big Creek, and they're gonna be coming back with that resolution asking for your approval to extend their bond, so that it's not a rate increase beyond that. It's just they have to get our approval for the bonding.
So the current rate increase that is in place, right now, we're paying 44 per connection. They're anticipating, again, on October 1, that connection fee will be going up to 49, as the mayor has indicated. What that could mean for future rate or connection fees, don't know. Right now, all they're asking for the approval on is the increase in the amount. The 3R contribution into the Enterprise Capital Maintenance Fund, I will be recommending to you all in next year's budget. That has been $600,000 out of the Enterprise Fund. The next item that I'm going to talk to you about on the agenda bespeaks the fact that some of our infrastructure is getting older. And so I'm going to be recommending an increase in that from $600,000, where it has been for years, to $750,000. Change to in 24 budget projections. The revenues that you will be seeing and that we use for this, first 8 months of data and 3-year trends, we use that for a lot. Our billing specifics and consumption worksheet that we use, percentage of the rate increases and percentage of the customer increases, expenses, again, first 8 months of data, 3-year trend, adjusted expenses that we had on the actual information, and statistical billing and consumption worksheet. Our consumption worksheet is the basis for the biggest guess that we have. And so we try to make that as educated a guess as we have with the number of households. Next year, I can tell you that within the water department, for the very first time, we will go over 9,000 households that we're providing water to. And of course, widgeting, we have to go back 2 years. You all hear that from me with that incredibly complex opening statement that I make at budget time. So we've already adjusted the actuals for fiscal year 23 in making these recommendations to you. With that being said, as you can see, the increase that we will be recommending to you all formally in the water for break even is going to be an increase of 8 cents or 1.2%, and 19 cents or 2.1% within the sewer. You're seeing a lot of that is the Middle Big Creek, that large jump from 44 to 49. That's pretty extensive. With the new rates that are in place, as you can see from the next page that you all have, we are still considerably below everyone at the 5,000, and 5,000 is the more realistic number, unless you're at the Fearborn household, in which case it's always much closer to the 10,000, because Mrs. Fearborn has this thing about watering our lawn year-round. But we are considerably lower at the more realistic 5,000 gallons than anybody within the region, and surprisingly, we're lower than 2 of the water districts just on water. I have no idea what 7 and 3 are thinking out there with those water amounts that they're charging. The recommendation will be in front of the council. We always bring this, and we bring the fee schedule to the council, which is going to have some pretty extensive changes as well this year. Based on some background that we're doing, I'm going to talk to you about one of those under other tonight as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Fearborn, I remember a couple of years ago, you talked to us a little bit, and this may have changed because I know that the 3 sewer districts that service us, we have volume, rate, and then we have differences between the 3. I remember you telling us at the time, and we're still competitive neck and neck and beat Lee Summit in some areas, but one advantage Lee Summit had over us was their size. Certainly the population, that's where growth plays in, because you spread the cost over more households. Does that formula still apply? As we see more growth, we will at some point, I won't say a reduction because cost will go up in time, but it will level itself out. Is that a correct assessment?
The primary change, I'm going to answer your question over here.
Yes, sir.
The primary difference between us and Lee Summit is they enjoy the fact that they are what is called a first pump and we are a second pump. Everybody gets their water from the Missouri River and Kansas City Water Services. It's good to be king. And so the farther you are away from the river, the more pumps you have. We are second pump. Our pump is actually located on Ward Road up there to get it down to everybody here in Cass County. The vast majority of their city is a first pump, so they enjoy that lower rate that comes with being a first pump.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay,
Thank you all very much.
all right. Next item is the Owen Good Force Main repair. Ms. Fairborn.
Sir? Ma'am, thank you. Sirs. Gentlemen. So, some of you are aware that in Ward 1, over the course of the last year, or over the course of the last several months, we have had 3 major breaks in the Owen Good Force Main line coming up from the Owen Good pump station. They are all located where you see the proposed replacement in the map on page 2 in blue that is here. That is where we have had the 3 breaks. We anticipate, my recommendation to the council tonight is that you allow us to do an emergency project, not emergency repairs. Side issue with the and Mr. Salisbury's here tonight. If you have any technical questions about that, what that project would look like, it is, I would ask for $1 million. Right now, the estimate with a contingency in place is about $867,000, I believe, to conduct the project. But there have been so many unknowns with this. One of the side issues I would bring up, and as you can see from the very graphic pictures that are in here, when you're dealing with force main and force main breaks, you are dealing with not nice stuff coming up out of the ground. And unfortunately, this force main is very, we have had to report all of these, as Mr. Salisbury says, we've had to report all of these breaks to the DNR because there is the potential for them leaking into one of our streams. And that raises red flags, that raises the potential for future fines. It's just not a good situation. If we continue with these breaks, we will far exceed this $847,000. It is not a question of if in this particular area, it's a question of when and how many we are going to have. Again, some of the daunting tasks is we have a very, very long history with this particular force main that's in here. My proposal to the council from a financial standpoint, we have 2 funds that we can use to take this particular expense from. The sewer connection fee fund, which is extremely healthy, Fund 53, we are projecting an ending balance this year of $1,600,000. And the Enterprise Capital Maintenance Fund, we've actually had to replace the Owen Good pumps this year. You'll remember you budgeted that at $400,000 this year, so a little bit less. We are projecting, even with that particular project, $621,000 in balance. I would be proposing $700,000 of the $1 million be budgeted to come out of Fund 53, and the $300,000 be coming out of the Enterprise Capital Maintenance Fund at the $621,000. Again, by statute and ballot language, we are allowed to use either of those funds. A component of the break that we are seeing here is the fact that our growth has led to more stuff being pumped through there. So a growth fund is an appropriate fund to take it out of. But the Enterprise Capital Maintenance Fund, obviously, as I told you all earlier, I'm going to be proposing that go up by 150,000 to 750,000 each year in the contribution from the enterprise fund, because we're going to see more of this. One of the things that in the future is kind of scary on this, that we will report to you all, is that we've only replaced 4,000, all of this was put in at the same time in 93. We replaced 4,540 feet of 17,500. And when you look at the map, where you see the point repairs going up by Silver Lake, once we get out of this particular area, in the area that was replaced in 2019, and then coming up to Lucy Webb there, just south of Silver Lake, when we start getting into those repairs, we're gonna be digging up street. And we're gonna be digging up front yard to get to sewer main. That is going, when we see that happen, these costs are gonna go up dramatically, which is why we need to start funding this now at $100,000, $150,000 extra a year, because that's gonna be some serious disruption go on there when we have to do it.
Are any of these lines small enough that we can do pipe bursting or?
After you, Mr. Salisbury, that's why I have him sitting at the end of the table.
There are options to do lining and stuff like that, but when it's a 24-inch line, they really just prefer to replace it. When you get up into the neighborhoods, it's definitely something we'll explore so that we could possibly not have to do that, especially new technology. Who knows what'll exist, but when we started looking at this project, it was very expensive, and they were not super confident in its success at this size.
Yeah, Tom?
So we have some different people we work with just on all sorts of sewer projects, so different contractors and things that we just kind of reached out to ask questions and see what they've done and stuff like that. So it's a collection of people who work in the industry. No.
Well, see, you guys have your own metro association where you guys can discuss issues like that amongst yourselves, I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Barber, did you have something? Okay. Yes, sir. Mr. Baker.
The blue part's what we would be replacing, right? The blue line.
That is correct, sir.
Is that eventually like the gap between the blue line and the bottom red one? Is that something down the road that we're gonna, or are we looking to replace almost this entire line in its entirety over time, or?
Over time, the entire line will have to be replaced,
Why is the blue line, how did that get
because that is the area where we're experiencing these breaks.
those leaks? Okay. Are any of those, like for the neighborhood, that'd be the first thing I think that we'll get as councilmen, or at least Brian and I in that ward, where, does that go up through yards, or how is that, or I guess?
The blue line?
Yeah.
No, it's in between, I can't think of the neighborhood, but it's like Saddlebrook, on the west side of Saddlebrook.
Okay. So,
Several of the neighbors there, it actually goes in our common area behind those homes, but well, not our common area. Some of it's in the floodplain, but it's actually within the development that is going to be going in just to the east. We have had one of the neighbors very concerned because obviously right behind his house, we keep having to go in and tear it up. A lot of those neighbors, and you see this in a lot of different places, there have been a lot of stories that we've been swapping at management team. You see people kind of over time, even though it's a private development that's going to be going in there, over time they kind of co-op areas that are beyond their backyard. People put in putting greens, and there is one particular yard there that when we go in and do this, we have been going in and kind of hitting an edge where they have a really, really nice planting area that actually goes outside of their actual yard area. It's gonna be torn up, but it's not on their property, and we're gonna have to get to it to get to this. But there are 4 or 5 neighbors within there where the back of their yards are gonna be torn up for a considerable amount of time with this
It's
particular
on that
project.
east edge of South Stonegate.
So like interruption of service, what's the anticipated, I guess?
So they'll lay the new line parallel to the old one, and then our pond down there can hold about 3 days worth of sewage, so there really shouldn't be any disruption.
Anyone else? Joe, do you have some? Did you have something, Jay?
Yeah, it's more of a comment. I think this is very important, and I think this piece certainly needs to be done. But this is going to be an ongoing thing. This is 30 years. Our neighbors to the west have infrastructure that dates back 60 and 70 years. And they've been doing some deferred maintenance on some of this stuff going back. And that deferred maintenance has become incredibly costly for them. And we will find ourselves in that same boat if we don't start advanced planning on this and taking care of this going forward, because it will multiply like gopher holes in your yard, and we will be way behind. And then our costs will go up, and we will have to find other sources of revenue. That's if we can stay within it within this deal. So, like I said, we have the benefit of our city being a little younger than theirs, and so that infrastructure went in the days of, a lot of it went in during the days of the air base, and so they're much older, and unfortunately they see the aging infrastructure issues that we are just starting to see some of. This will be important going forward for quite some time, I see.
Anyone else? Okay, so we'll see that.
The next time you see it, it will be a bid with a very large budget amendment attached to it.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, and the last item, D, is the 58 highway painting and striping. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to report to the council that I am approving a recommendation from Mr. Justin Paith and Mr. Salisbury that they're putting forth. From here on out, the 58 highway and painting that goes on is going to be done at night. We will be flexing schedules. It's actually safer for folks and incredibly cost-effective for us. So you'll just wake up one morning and 58 highway will be done. It'll be kind of like Easter. To give you an example, and I'll just read this. So when we first started 58 highway this year, we were actually doing it during the day. Takes an entire crew, and the example would be when we turned to doing it at night, Zach and a shorter crew than the entire crew were able to complete all of the work needed in the eastbound curb lane across town, the westbound curb lane to Sunset, and all of the business turn lanes in 6 hours. Compare that to, it took 5 hours and the entire crew to do one 4-part intersection. It took them all day on Monday, 8 hours. So basically, we got one entire, I mean, if you count the two, we got 2 turn lanes done, almost the entirety of 58 highway. The interesting trivia question that came out of all of this is, we actually have 97 left turn arrows in that chicken lane out on 58 highway. And probably half of them are asking you to turn left into nothing.
Yeah.
It's either curb or field or just nothing there. So we're probably gonna be just letting those fade away, and we'll be painting the ones people actually use going forward in the future. We have also upped our game on the paint that we're using within this. So we're hoping that the paint pops a little bit more, because I think it does, and we're hoping it lasts a lot longer. Gets us through each season, because it starts to fade the other paint that we're using was starting to fade quite a bit in the last month. That concludes staff report on this item, and I have one more infrastructure item for the council, sir, under other.
Any questions about paint and striping? All right, I'll turn it back over for the last item.
One of the items that you will be seeing on the fee structure this year Hope that you will accept this recommendation. The overarching thing is, some of you may have experienced that folks out there laying fiber optic and cable tend to cause a little bit of concern and disruption on the part of our citizens, like every week. Google was the start of it. We let this creep up on us. We can't stop them. We've had a lot of conversations about that because they're operating in the right of way, their right of way, the utility right of way. Can't stop them. We can charge them for it. So we are not nearly covering our costs associated with responding to complaints, inspections, GIS asset management, permitting, review. All of that goes into, even though they're out there just laying cable, we're having to pay for a lot of that. So did a little bit of research on this, and with the exception of the metropolitan Kansas City area, you get out into the broad world, Billings, Montana, $2 a lineal foot. Madison, Wisconsin, $2 a lineal foot for this size, $4 a lineal foot for this size. Chandler, Arizona, $2.27 per lineal foot, and that list just goes on and on and on. I'm just picking some your average towns USA. We charge 5 cents a lineal foot, and we don't even do it that way. We're not nearly covering what we're supposed to be doing. I also believe
It's just a flat permit fee, isn't it?
it's just, on what they're doing. As an example, right now, AT&T is doing 60,000 feet. That is a quarter of their proposed project in the next 18 months. And that's a starter project for them, 60,000 lineal feet. Vero Network is connecting the schools in Ray-Pac so that they can all have their own internal network, 60,000 feet project. Irvin for Comcast has gotten into the game too. Irvin for Comcast is out there right now doing 40,000 feet. I will be proposing within the new fee schedule $1 per lineal foot. Honestly, I don't think they're gonna blink at it because nobody asked Google to come in here. Google just came in. Nobody's talking to Comcast about upgrading. They're just coming in. Obviously, it's not Comcast guys out there with Comcast shirts doing this. It's all subcontractors who are then, it's part of their cost of doing business, part of the fee structure that they're giving to these parent companies. So you will be seeing that within our proposed fee schedule coming up to go to $1 a lineal foot. That concludes staff reports tonight, sir.
Thanks. Anybody have any questions about that? Mr. Baker?
Do we have any comparative numbers, like what Belton charges or Grandview or?
Regionally, everybody is too low. They're down in the 5 to 15 cents.
And see, this all came about with new legislation just in the last 4 or 5 years, that all of that, because there was a larger fee that they were paying for those particular cost of services that we were providing. And now that they've legislated that away, we got to find some way to recoup that cost.
And again, it creeped up on us, as you all know, for the video providers, that fee is automatically being reduced, as the mayor has indicated, that we're allowed to charge to that. I mean, it's going to be reduced by half in a 5-year period where we were at least making up some of that. But it made it attractive to move from this type of cable to the fiber optic networks and the dark networks that you see out there that aren't even being activated. They're just laying it now for 5 years down the road, so they think nothing about, and between the mayor, myself, some of you council members, Mr. Murdoch, who, because he's such a nice guy, put him in charge of a lot of the complaints. I mean, it is complaints a week, not complaints a month on this thing. coming from folks. They just don't care as much. And we hear from some of our very good citizens who have their yards torn up for a long time. So anyway, you'll be seeing that.
Okay. Tom?
So when we talk about AT&T, I know that fiber cable, they've been trying to get into their so-called better internet. That's what they tell me all the time. We've been with UVerse 24 years. And now they tell me, oh, by the way, don't worry, by the end of 24, 25, we're pulling all of our UVerse out of Raymore. All that's going to end. So you won't have none of this stuff now with UVerse and the cable. That's going away. So they're putting the cable in for their, I guess, Wi-Fi and all that. But they're going to pull everything else out and they want to go to that dish network deal without a dish. They've been pushing it 2 years on us, and that's all they're wanting to do now. But pull everything out, so that's kind of redundant that they.
Well, interestingly enough, though, even though they want to go with the dish and the Wi-Fi, their project is 240,000 square feet of fiber optic that they're putting into the ground. All of our items, all of these fee schedules were based on above ground items. You see a whole lot of these cities that now are scrambling to move from square foot fees to lineal feet on these things all over the United States. And compared to the coast, $1 a lineal foot is actually pretty cheap. The regular price on the coast is about $2.
Anybody else have anything? Anything under other? Going once, going twice. Okay. That concludes the meeting this evening. Thank you, everybody.